in land use that are whether it should be zoning issues as to whether it should be multifamily or whether it should be residential or commercial, et cetera. I think Houston has a much better system. I look at all that and I can come down to Houston or I go places and I don't see how it could be any worse if you had nothing than the system where we just have constant fights, and basically it gets settled in a political arena which has very little to do with what maximizes economic benefits in the first instance. And the third issue that I'll just discuss just briefly, because I think those are issues that your counties in Texas would be facing also, and that's what we refer to as a fiscal crisis. The counties in California, particularly the small rural counties, are suffering severe fiscal hardship in the sense that they're having to cut back rather dramatically on services. There's three reasons for this, basically. Number one is the voters were wise enough to place limits on the ability of local government to raise money, most noticeably Proposition 13, and the limit on the property tax revenues. And we also have things like the GAN initiative, which puts a spending cap on. And there's some other state initiatives which say that you can only use certain fees for certain purposes. You can't just throw them into your general fund, et cetera. Secondly, we've lost, as have you, the federal revenue sharing funds, which were, particularly for the small rural counties in California, a very significant part of their revenue base. And thirdly, we just have lots and lots of mandates that come down from the state, where the state says you have to do this, but doesn't provide any funding. And we've had just an explosion in what we refer to as caseload-driven programs. And I say caseload-driven program, I'm talking basically the justice system, where justice system costs are just, the county bears most of them, and they're totally exploding and out of control. I keep telling everybody I have a solution for that, and everyone smiles, but nothing happens because I keep saying we need to do away with the victimless crime laws. But and the other area is the welfare area, which we refer to also as case-driven. And we have a state organization there, and I keep raising the dickens with our member who represents us on the state association, because the state association basically takes the position that if the state mandates it, why the state should pay for it, and the county should pay for the rest of it. And I basically take the position, no, we should have more local discretion at the county level. It's not a question of just turning over authority to the state saying do whatever you wish as long as you pay for it. There should be a certain sense of local autonomy. Our county has a budget of approximately $21 million. Well, if you said to the county, here's $21 million, and that money is discretionary, county board of supervisors, you spend it, we'd be awash in money. I mean, we would have no problems. In fact, we could cut, I think, a lot of taxes and a lot of fees. But the problem isn't that there isn't enough money at the local level. The problem is that there's not enough of it that's discretionary. And so, I'm basically at odds, I guess, then with the state county association, in which they're really saying, not attacking the extent or the penetration or the degree of government, but just saying who should fund it. And I would much rather take the approach of, well, we don't need this extent of government, we don't need this penetration, we don't need this involvement. It's not just a question of who funds it, it's a question of we don't need this level of government. So that then briefly would cover my county experience. I would like to just make a couple other comments, because I have I don't speak that often to groups, and I do have a certain level of frustration with one area. So I'll just, as being I'm at the podium, I'll just throw that out. And that certain area of frustration comes from reading the LP News and reading the Mike Holmes's American Libertarian. The degree of factionalism or disharmony or discord at the national level. And I refer basically to the disagreements between what I would refer to as the administrative management team and the national committee. I personally think that that type of upheaval needs to come to an end. I don't think it's good for the party. I don't see how that helps us in our objectives. I think it's only divisive. It seems like since I've been a Libertarian, every national chair has been fired except for one that had the good luck, I guess, to have a health problem and left the office. It seems like every time that the National Committee has a meeting, or at least every other time the National Committee has a meeting, they have a vote on whether to fire the national chair and the national director. And the meeting, they don't have a vote on that. They have a vote on is the other meeting, which they have a vote on whether they should fire the editor of the LP News. I mean, I've never seen anything like what I have to read coming from the national organization. And I, just speaking for myself, would like to see a lot more harmony there and a lot more focus of attention on general. On just a general set of objectives and trying to achieve those objectives. And I was telling my wife before I came, if Marshall was here, what I would recommend is that Marshall do a recall effort, because I'm sure he sent them Robert Ringer's Restoring the American Dream. I think he sent that to about every citizen in the country by now, and I told my wife that we should have Marshall do a recall effort on Robert Ringer's Restoring the American Dream, and have him instead send a book by Peter Drucker on management, so that we might become a little more highly focused on what we're about and what our objectives are. The other comment I'd like to make is the comment on what I refer to as Demented Roberts' rules of paralysis. It seems to me, being a small party, that we should have certain advantages over the Leviathan state, or even a big and significant party such as the Republicans or the Democrats. And every time I attend a convention or a function in California, it's always by what I refer to as Demented Roberts' rules of paralysis. And I look at that and I marvel at the fact that given the procedural context that anything of substance ever takes place, it would seem to me that our objectives are narrowly enough defined, and that we share in them enough that we should be able to conduct business in a much better process than what I seem to witness when I attend Libertarian functions. I think I never did meet Mr. Roberts, but I'm certain that he must have been the cause of the initiation of the mental hygiene profession, or not mental hygiene, but the mental what am I trying to say? The mental health profession. We always tease ourselves at the board level whenever the mental health director comes in as to whether he'll take one of us out with him. So anyway, I would just like to say that I think it's speaking for myself as a Libertarian and an office holder, that it would be certainly great to see things at the national level be a little more harmonious. I would just end that brief comment with the statement that if the National Committee is the one that hires and retains the chair and the director, and that's not the case, so I'll quit that comment. And let me just briefly comment on some reasons for optimism, and because I'd like to leave it on an upbeat note, and say that I think there are lots of reasons for optimism. I think just the reflection that you're here tonight. I understand there's approximately 100 of us here tonight. Last year there were approximately 50 of us. I understand now we have 7 candidates for the position of president of the Libertarian under the Libertarian Party. When I came down this morning, I thought there were 3. So I understand there's been some additions since Carol Newman, which I read about in Libertarian News. I think those are good signs. I think that shows a sign of renewed vitality and a sense of purpose. I would only end then in saying personally why I've always been optimistic, if not optimistic, at least content. And that is that I'm very happy to be a Libertarian. I think the Libertarian Party reflects very well and adequately my views in the political arena. I've been I was a Republican for a long period of time, and a very dissatisfied one, and one who was uneasy in that mode because of the civil liberties and the intervention and militarism demonstrated by that party. I look at the Libertarian Party and say, well, you know, we may not be doing great, we may not elect a president this year, but at least here is an organization with which I agree. Here is a mechanism for me to reflect with pride my ideological and my moral and my political beliefs. I'm very thankful for that, and as long as that is in fact the case, I will continue to be thankful. And I think we should all be very thankful that we have the party, and we should do our best to support the party and to see that the party becomes successful and even more successful than we've been to date, and hopefully will achieve greater successes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to ask Dr. Matt Monroe to come up to the podium now. He has a few brief remarks about the future of the Texas Libertarian Party. Matt, as you may or may not know, he's certainly well known to us here in Texas, has been or was the founder of the Texas Independence Pledge, which is the main financial vehicle which is used to finance the state party over the last sure how many years we've had the Independence Pledge, but a number of years. He has been on the Libertarian National Committee. He's the publisher of the American Libertarian, and he's been the former National Finance Chairman of the Libertarian Party. Please have a nice hand for Dr. Matt Monroe.
Thank you, David. David and Becky have been always quite generous with their time and house to accommodate different libertarian activities over the years. And I'd like to promise that I'm going to have some good news for you who listen to me tonight, especially after I'm going to be finished. For the history of the Libertarian Party and its future are closely related, and the most recent one is that about 16 months ago, Diana Pilcher and Roger Gary approached me, and they asked me what did I think about running for ballot in '86, and I told them, look, I mean, it looks like it's a crazy idea. You shouldn't waste your energies. Conserve capital, conserve energy for '88. In '88, we'll do great on a ballot drive. Now, because they were smart enough not to listen to me and go ahead and proceed, and as a result, we are on a ballot in '88 now. And so some of the things which I'm going to say, please take it with a tongue in cheek and don't take it too seriously, because there is always a margin of error. And being in the Libertarian movement, I have always erred, and usually on the part of the optimism. Well, but after we went on the ballot in '86, we were lucky enough to get at least 3 candidates who have achieved more than 5% statewide, and those candidates have put us on the ballot in '88. One of them was Robert Reed, another one Willie Rawlins, and the third one who got 10%, it was George Meeks. He got 10%, and I would like to present to him as a token of appreciation a Texas silver dollar. It has a likeness of Sam Houston on one side and has a Texas star on another. It's 1 ounce of silver. It's good. But the award for economy in running political race goes to Honey Lanham, who apparently spent only $4 for her race and got 2%. So and of course I'd like to thank Teresa Doyle and Bill Howard and all others who worked so hard last year, and thank to them we'll be on the ballot next year. I believe that the future of our races next year looks very bright, and there are a lot of reasons, and the primary reason here in Texas, in all oil-producing states, is that we are in the midst of depression. And I'm talking about serious depression. The banks are closing, they are foreclosing, people lose jobs, and the price of oil goes down and up, and nobody knows what's going on. But when you look close enough, you can see the pattern and understand why all those things, horrible things, happen to us. And when you look back, you can see that the price of oil and gas were controlled for quite some time, and later on, when the prices worldwide started to go up, the producers here in Texas and elsewhere could not get their profits out because their prices were flat. And so there was a lot of complaining, a lot of squawking about this, and after they squawked long enough, the government said, okay, we are going to remove the price controls, and they did. But after they removed price controls, they instituted a windfall profit tax. So it means after they sold it for more and they had some more money, all this money was taxed. So it means they didn't see it and they could not get an honest return on their investment. But not only this, the government, who has its pet projects around Middle East, decided to subsidize foreign oil. And the government does it by sending fleet to Persian Gulf and protecting some of those oil-producing nations. Now, the cost of this subsidy is about $40 billion per year. Now, it doesn't take long to figure out that if you transport about 1 million barrels of oil every day at the cost of $40 billion per year, it costs about $120 to subsidize 1 barrel of oil. So as you can see, there's no way producers in Texas can compete with such a tremendous subsidy. Now, if we can carry this message across, I believe we have excellent chances of carrying Texas maybe next year, as Tom suggested, because presidential election is going to be next year, but maybe next in '88. So this definitely should help. Now, there's some good news next year, and of course I would like to make some predictions because we are talking about the future. And of course, number one prediction is that Libertarian Party of Texas will be on the ballot in 1988. And I'll be right on this. I mean, so we'll see how the other predictions are going to come. As a result of active campaigns, the membership in our party will double or triple within the next year and a half. This sounds pretty good. And as a result of next year's campaign, here we'll be on the ballot in 1990, 1992. So maybe no more ballot drives, hopefully. In 1982, we had 100 candidates running for offices statewide, and I hope that next year we are going to have more than that, more than 100. And it is my belief that we are going to follow into Tom Tryon's footsteps and elect at least one or two to the real office. Now, I'd like to make some predictions about the National Party. And I know that Tom was quite critical of the National Party performance, and I'm critical too. And I feel, of course, I don't want to be partial, but most of those problems stem from his home ground, which is California. So, Tom, we are all with you, and we'll hope that at the time of the next national convention in Seattle, we'll do a cleanup job, you know. It looks like the national headquarters will remain in Houston for the reasons which I have just explained. And it looks like the next national director will be from Texas. So it looks like we are going to be again in the leadership of the National Party. Not that we want to, but there's nobody else who will do it for us, you know. I also would like to mention that my feeling is that Russell Means will make significant inroads into the Libertarian Party and his planned campaign for 1992. Sir? Also, I'd like to mention that it looks to me like presidential campaign next year will raise about $5 million, and we will most likely receive about 3 to 6 million votes. from what we can see and from the dynamics of the entire movement, the Texas LP will become a majority party in the state by the beginning of the next century. It looks like it's a far, far away, but it's not really when you think of it. It's 1987. Now, only about 13 years ago, this was what year it was. It was 1974. Mike and Holmes, I'm sure, remembers this, and doesn't seem to be too far away. I just would like to end on a historical note that 155 years ago, a former congressman from Tennessee came to Texas, and he made a major impact on the local politics and on the local political arena. And this congressman was not a saint. When he came, he was 39, and he brought some past with him. Now, one of those interesting features about his past was that he was a runaway at the age of 14, and he joined Cherokees where he decided to live with them rather than farm with his mother and 9 brothers and sisters. Now, 2 brothers who felt like they lost some help on the farm and they wanted another farmhand went to retrieve him, and they found him under the tree reading Homer's Iliad, and they asked him, "Why don't you come back to us, to civilization?" Now he says, "No, I'm not going. I prefer the freedom with the red man than tyranny of my brothers." So they didn't like it because, everybody is supposed to love his brother, and obviously he wasn't. Now, later on, he became involved in politics in Tennessee, became elected a congressman and a governor, and got married. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out. The wife left him after about 2 or 3 months. Why she left him, of course, we don't know, but we suspect that part of the reason was that he had a lot of wounds from his previous battles with Andrew Jackson, and some of those wounds were draining, and apparently this was a repulsive sight to her. And he came to Texas, and 3 years later defeated a military dictator from Mexico. It seems almost unbelievable that the nation of 30,000 people could defeat a nation of 8 million, because that's what Mexico was at the time. And they were better organized, they had better artillery, they had more troops. Still, he could do it. And afterwards, he was elected president, and things went well, but later on he was not re-elected, and another president, Mirabal Amar, came in, and he was like Ronald Reagan is today. Big spender, a lot of paper money, and foreign intervention. Now, he sent troops to Mexico and lost, sent troops to New Mexico, trying to claim it for Texas, and again was beaten up pretty badly. And also was trying some local wars with Indians, and this didn't work out, and so he was beaten up. Now, he financed his campaigns and his spending by printing money. As a matter of fact, I have one Republic of Texas dollar. This dollar, unlike the one which I gave to George Meeks, after 3 years of his presidency, was worth about 3 cents. So as you can see, the government spending and inflation and printing money go hand in hand. So when Sam Houston became president again as a result of election, he did what any libertarian would do. He cut the government to about 1/10 of its proper size, of its previous size. He disbanded the army and just had militia and 3 companies of rangers, and refused to pay debt. He said, "There's no money in the treasury, I'm not paying." Of course, there were a lot of people who were unhappy with that. However, the state did very well, and the economy rebounded in about a year and state was rich again. So he also made peace with his Indian neighbors, with Cherokees, Creeks, and Comanches. So overall, as you can see, it is possible that the government can be cut. It's possible that we can have peace without a big army, and also it's possible that libertarian ideas can win in the future because they won once in the past. So on this note, I would like to wish all of you best of luck in your campaigns in this and next year, and I hope that your contribution will sustain the party as it had in the past, and I hope that all of you will accomplish through the party what you always wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Well, that brings us to our very special part of the evening, for which we have imported one of our more eloquent spokesmen for libertarianism. I'd like to ask Paul Jacob to come forward at this time. For those of you that weren't here on our draft panel this morning, and it started pretty early in the morning, I will have to admit you maybe not had a chance to meet Paul. Just let me briefly say that Paul has had a rather distinguished and high-profile time and in his battle with the federal government and against draft registration. As you may know, he was indicted back in 1982 and finally arrested 2 years later for failure to register, at which time he served 6 months in a federal prison for his failure to register. That perhaps would bring Henry David Thoreau's quote to mind that when a government is passing unjust laws, prisons are the only proper place for just men. But anyway, Paul is an accomplished fundraiser, and certainly he had played a big part last year at the Libertarian Party Convention in San Antonio in 1986 when he took over that task along with Alicia Clark, who was there at the same time. And certainly at that point in time, there were some very bleak prospects in Texas, and as Matt has already told you, that certainly turned around, and a large share of it went or was because of the effort of a lot of dedicated people and the money that was raised that night. And without further ado, let me turn it over to Paul Jacob.
Recently, I was appointed the new finance chair of the National Party, which I'm not sure if that's because I'm an accomplished fundraiser or because they found out how many credit cards my wife and I have. But I think that, of course, fundraising is an important part. And I think sometimes we like to shy away from that because it's difficult to give the type of money that we'd like to give. I'd like to give a lot more than I can give to the party. And so I think sometimes we're a little bit shy to ask for funds, and I'm going to try to not be shy. I know that last year at this convention, of course, we had Alicia Clark here to help us, and we raised an awful lot of money. And I can remember I had the pleasure of introducing Alicia, and I said to begin my talk that some people had said that they hate to ask for money, and I had said that I very much enjoy asking for money because if you all don't give money, if we don't ask for money, you all won't be on the ballot in '88. You won't get the funds to be on the ballot in '86 to make you on the ballot in '88. We asked, and more importantly, you all gave, and you were on the ballot, and now we have ballot status here in Texas for '88. I think that we have to decide how important freedom is if we're going to pull out our checkbook and write a check, if we're going to dip into the money that we can go to a movie with or take the family out to lunch or what have you. There's a lot of fun things to do with money. How important is freedom? At what price will you purchase it? I know that Norma Jean gave a talk earlier today where she talked about being in solitary confinement for 50 days. And I know a little bit about that because I was in solitary confinement in the fine state of Texas at a federal prison outside of Dallas for 10 days. That's pretty hard. I would give a lot of money not to go through that again. I think Norma Jean would give a lot of money not to be facing a prison term right now. I think her husband, who may be forgotten by a lot of us, but who's in Los Angeles right now, would give a lot of money not to have his wife taken away from him. Recently, one of the final draft resistance trials happened. A friend of mine, Gillum Curley, was sentenced to 3 years in prison, and under his probation guidelines will have to serve at least a year of that. So will lose the distinction of having served the most time. There's also, of course, the thousands of people, many of them in this room, who've resisted taxes, who've gone to jail for resisting taxes. What would we give for them not to have to worry about that? What would we give if we haven't resisted taxes? Not so much to avoid the payment, because we'll probably pay more, or I hope a lot of us will pay more in dues to the Libertarian Party and monthly pledges and one-time contributions than we might be able to save on our tax rates. I don't know, you all might pay a lot more than I have to. But regardless of that, what I would really pay a lot of money for, and I think what you all might be willing to pay more for, is if you didn't have to live under the threat that someone could come into your home at any time, that someone can go through all your personal things, that someone can put you and your family and your life in jeopardy. And we can go further. What would people pay to end the draft? What would a father who lost a son in Vietnam pay to have that son back? You know, I would pay an awful lot of money if I could know for sure that my daughter, when she grows up, won't be drafted along with other, you know, with the male population. To know that she'll grow up in a society that's free, where there's opportunity. I'd pay an awful lot of money. Recently, she understands the connections between political oppression and a reduced standard and value to life. Recently at her Montessori school, she told them that we couldn't always go to Hardee's after we pick her up and eat dinner because President Reagan has stolen some of our money. So they told us they'd let us know if they were planning any field trips to the White House. The truth is that if we were talking about marginal tax rates, or if we were talking about moving the stoplight to a better position on Main Street, or not having to fill out a form every 2 or 3 years in which we told how many toilets we had in our house and how many people live there. If we were just talking about those things, I think that we might, we might give $5, we might give 10, we might give more. But we're not just talking about that. We're talking about stopping a very strong $1 trillion a year organization from controlling what students learn, from controlling how they view their world and themselves and whether they have opportunity, whether they feel good about themselves and prosper and have a happy life. We're talking about whether this country goes to war against another country, whether thousands of people are killed, whether we have another horror story like Vietnam. We're talking about whether the government is allowed to continue to lie to people, whether they're allowed to continue to violate people's rights. And basically, we're talking about, regardless of what the issue is, whether people are going to be able to pursue happiness or not. And that's really what we're going to give some money for if we do. And that's because we want to be happy. We want other people to be happy. We want to enjoy our life. And unfortunately, without the Libertarian Party, without the Libertarian movement, I think we would enjoy our lives less, and I think as time goes on, we would lose more and more of the freedoms that, as far as I'm concerned, make life so very worth living. I think freedom is worth a tremendous price. I think life without freedom is an unhappy life. And I think that the fact that people kill themselves, which they're doing in this country in record numbers and you hear about it, means that people care more about being happy than they do about being alive. I think we could all envision a case in which life would be so unworth living if we were being tortured, if we were being tormented, if we were going through an audit at the IRS, in which we might no longer want to live. And that's what freedom is. Freedom to me is a ticket to pursue happiness, is the ability to be happy. And the ability to be happy is more important than life itself. So the price is pretty darn high. The second question we have to ask ourselves is the Libertarian Party the place to put our money? Because there's other organizations in the freedom movement. There's other places we can put our money. Can the party succeed? Well, you know, in 1986, I think we faced that same question with the ballot drive here in Texas. Can we succeed? Sure, it'd be great if we could get on the ballot, if we could have permanent ballot status, but can we do it? You all decided you could, and you did it. You know, I work now for Ed Crane at the Cato Institute, and of course, they're not exactly enthusiastic supporters of the Libertarian Party. They don't think the Libertarian Party is the vehicle to achieve a free society anymore. And in fact, I have friends who have no connection with Ed or with any of the people at Cato or in some of the quote Coke-to-Puss type organizations who used to tell me back in 84 and 85 that the Libertarian Party is dead. And I had one very good friend who just said, it's just so sad that the party's dead. I don't know what to do about it. And I said, well, why don't you just come with me to, I was going to a convention in Atlanta. Why don't you just come to me to this convention and, you know, see all these dead folks? And he came and he said, well, geez, I guess it's alive in Georgia. I said, well, it's alive in numerous places. The party didn't die. I think there was this idea that if we ever stopped growing a little bit, if we lost that rate of growth, and this was the mindset that a lot of people had, especially during the Clark campaign and even after, then the party was doomed. And people who said that to themselves enough began to believe it, and it began to be a self-fulfilling prophecy for them. But the party is not dead, as all of you will attest by your presence. The party is alive and well. And we have presidential candidates, not only a bunch of them, but a bunch of very, very well-qualified, well-spoken, very men of very high, men and women of very high moral character. And I think that that's a real testament that this party is alive and kicking and growing. I think that the reason it's growing is because enough of us decided that we wanted it to grow. We decided that it wouldn't die. And that was all there was to it, basically. The Libertarian Party will die if everyone decides, well, it's dead. Or the Libertarian Party will not grow if everyone decides, well, it's not going to grow. But if we decide, yes, it will grow, yes, it will live, yes, it will be successful. I'm not saying just say it. I'm saying decide. Make a commitment that, yes, I believe it will, and I'm going to make that happen. And the reason that the Libertarian Party is alive today and capable of helping people like myself and others who are victimized by the government and capable of educating the American people so that we can create a society that has more freedom is because you all decided and committed yourself to that and made it happen. You know, we made some predictions up here, Dr. Monroe did. Those may happen, they may not. But it's not by some fate. Very few of us are mystical. Fate will not decide. You all will decide. And one of the ways you will decide is by how much money you give tonight. That's just one of the ways, but it's an important way. A political party, a political organization is not going to succeed without money. You may not like that fact. You may like it. We certainly don't have the money the Democrats and Republicans have. We also don't have the matching funds they have. But without money, we're not going to go as far. We're not going to make it unless we give, and give more, I think, than just our movie money or our out-to-lunch money. We're going to have to give a little bit till it hurts. I know there's monthly pledgers in here. There's people who have given hundreds of dollars. I'm sure there's some people in here who've given thousands of dollars. They're going to have to give some more. You know, one of the most horrifying ideas that I can contemplate is what would happen. You know, we talk about, is the Libertarian Party a good vehicle? Well, what would happen if all of us went home and said, you know, we can't do it. Let's go to the movies more often. Let's buy food we like, let's do whatever we enjoy, because the Libertarian Party won't make it, and basically freedom cannot be achieved. I don't think that if you all leave and stop fighting for freedom, I don't think someone else will pick it up and do it. I don't think we can be free without the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian movement creating that freedom. It will not happen without us. And that's a horrible thing to think about. The chances for a free society, for an increase in the amount of individual freedom, I think are nil without the Libertarian Party being there. I'm going to ask, they're passing out cards, envelopes now for contributions. You all will decide the future of the Libertarian Party. And that is something that's going to take an awful lot of commitment. I'm asking you all, everybody, to give as much as you possibly can. I know there's a tremendous variance, but we're all at different tables. I'd like to see each table average about at least $20 a person. And that means that some of the people who can't give as much are going to have to be sponsored a little bit by some of the people who can. I know you're getting off easy. Alicia would have made it a lot tougher. You wouldn't have gotten out for 20. This is discount night. It is essential that we raise money here tonight. The Texas Libertarian Party, I think, is at a very important juncture in its history. We do not have to come to Texas, and this is from an outsider's viewpoint. We don't have to come to Texas in June, which I like Texas all right, even though I've spent most of my time here in prison. I still like Texas, but I don't like it that much in June. It's a little hot, and the fact that we don't have to come to Texas and petition here is a big help for the Libertarian Party nationally. But I think it's even more important for you all here. The money we raise tonight is not going to be paid for a petition drive. It's not going to come in and go out that way. For the first time, as far as I know, in the history of the Texas Libertarian Party, the money that we're raising now is going to go only, not for petition drives, not for fighting the state to be able to produce our message and get it in the hands of people, but only to take our message to the people of the state of Texas. And I think that's well worth doing. I see a few people whose hands aren't writing, and I really implore you, now is the time to write a check out. I know a lot of you have given your monthly pledges. You may be a pledger for Texas and a pledger for the National Party, and you may be thinking, my goodness, do they ever do anything but hit us up for money? We produce a couple newsletters. No, seriously. We have to have money to run a political party. And if you're not being hit up for money constantly, then something's wrong. Something's wrong. Nothing happens for free. We're not able to develop materials. We're not able to develop advertising. We're not able to go to people unless we have money. It costs money to do just about everything in the society. There ain't no free lunch. And so you're going to be asked again after tonight, I'm sure soon, I hope soon. But give tonight. Feel good when you leave here that you've given something, that you've given, as my good friend Jimmy Swaggart says, that you've done the best you can do. And they knew I was coming, so they said that we also accept MasterCard and Visa. Go into debt for the Libertarian Party tonight. Seriously, I was here last year, and I see a few more folks. It seems like every convention that I've been to, 2 years running or 3 years running, more folks each time. And I think that this party is growing. The people who said it was going to die, they're gone, so they don't know, but it's alive. And it's getting bigger. We're seeing old people come back. We're seeing new people come in. You have a chance in Texas, I think, to really strike new ground, because a lot of places we're still going to be petitioning. We're going to have a lot of tough obstacles to get on the ballot. You're already there, so please